Imagine a world without the internet. No Google searches, no social media, no online shopping. The internet, the lifeblood of the modern world, simply vanished. No more emails, no more streaming services, no more instant communication. The initial shock would be profound. The ramifications are staggering to consider. Our world is built upon the internet, its infrastructure woven into our daily lives. The day the internet died would begin like any other, but this day would be different. As we reach for our phones, we are met with an eerie silence. No notification chimes, no news alerts, no emails. Panic would set in slowly, a ripple of unease spreading. The world as we know it is crumbling. The initial shockwaves would reverberate through the global financial system. Stock markets would plunge into freefall. Cryptocurrencies would become worthless overnight. International trade would grind to a halt. Supermarket shelves would begin to empty. The world would face an economic crisis unlike any in human history. Panic would grip the streets. People would flock to banks, desperate to withdraw their savings. Inside the banks, chaos would reign. ATMs would stand idle, credit card machines useless. Cash would become king once again. The financial system would teeter on the brink of collapse. The sudden silence of the digital age would be deafening. Smartphones would be rendered largely useless. Landlines would see a resurgence in popularity. Emergency services would be thrown into disarray. Air traffic control would face its ultimate nightmare. The world would be plunged into a state of isolation. The internet's disappearance would send shockwaves through global shipping. Cargo ships would find themselves adrift. The global supply chain would unravel. Trucks would be stranded, drivers cut off from dispatchers. The smooth flow of goods would grind to a halt. The world would enter an era of scarcity. People would find themselves thrust back into an analog age. Television and radio would experience a dramatic resurgence. Libraries would become vital community hubs. The printed word would find renewed relevance. The art of letter writing would experience a revival. The world would rediscover the power of tangible connection. A spirit of resilience and resourcefulness would emerge. Communities would come together, sharing news and resources. Local businesses would rediscover face-to-face interaction. Barter systems would re-emerge. Families would spend more time together. The digital divide would begin to close. The transition to a world without the internet would not be without challenges. The absence of a centralized information network would create a vacuum. Governments would resort to traditional methods of communication. The lack of real-time information would lead to widespread uncertainty. The potential for social unrest and conflict would be high. The world would find itself at a crossroads, facing an uncertain future. Section 1. Information Scarcity. Navigating a Sea of Uncertainty. In the absence of the internet's constant stream of information, a profound sense of information scarcity would permeate society. The digital age had accustomed people to a world of instant answers, where any question could be answered with a quick Google search. Now, with the internet gone, people would be forced to grapple with uncertainty, to navigate a world where knowledge was once again a precious commodity. Newspapers once on the verge of extinction would experience a resurgence, their pages eagerly devoured by those hungry for any scrap of information about the state of the world. However, the news cycle, no longer fueled by the internet's immediacy, would slow to a crawl. Days, even weeks, might pass before events in distant lands reached local communities, creating a sense of temporal disorientation. The lack of real-time information would be most acutely felt in times of crisis. Natural disasters, once tracked with pinpoint accuracy by online platforms, would become shrouded in uncertainty. Rumors would spread like wildfire, fueled by fear and speculation, their veracity impossible to confirm in the absence of reliable sources. The internet's disappearance would create a fertile breeding ground for misinformation and propaganda. Governments, seeking to control the narrative and maintain order, would exploit the information vacuum, disseminating their own versions of events through official channels. Without the internet's ability to fact-check and expose falsehoods, people would be left to navigate a treacherous landscape of half-truths and outright lies. The line between reality and perception would blur, creating a climate of suspicion and mistrust. Education reinvented, the rise of the analog classroom. The disappearance of the internet would force a radical reimagining of education. Schools and universities once heavily reliant on online platforms would be forced to dust off their analog teaching materials and rediscover the art of the face-to-face lecture. Classrooms, once sparsely populated as students opted for the flexibility of online learning, would once again be filled with the murmur of voices and the scratching of pens on paper. Libraries, those treasure troves of human knowledge, would experience a renaissance. Students, cut off from the vast digital repositories of information, would flock to their local branches, eager to get their hands on physical books and journals. Librarians, once seen as gatekeepers of information in the digital age, would reclaim their rightful place as guides and mentors, helping students navigate the complexities of a world without Google. The curriculum would shift away from its current emphasis on digital literacy and technological proficiency. Subjects like history, literature, and philosophy, once marginalized in the face of STEM's dominance, would regain their prominence, their timeless wisdom offering solace and guidance in a world grappling with the loss of its digital foundations. The absence of the internet would force educators to rethink their pedagogical approaches. Rote memorization and standardized testing, once hallmarks of a system geared towards producing efficient workers for the digital economy, would give way to more holistic forms of assessment. Critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration, skills essential for navigating a world of complexity and uncertainty, would take center stage. Business transformed, embracing the offline exchange. The disappearance of the internet would send shockwaves through the business world, forcing companies to adapt or perish in a landscape transformed. E-commerce, once the darling of the digital age, would vanish overnight, its virtual storefronts replaced by the brick-and-mortar businesses it had once threatened to displace. Retail stores, long overshadowed by their online counterparts, would experience a revival, their aisles once again bustling with shoppers. The art of window dressing, of enticing passers-by with eye-catching displays, would regain its importance. Salespeople, no longer relegated to the sidelines of the digital shopping experience, would become trusted advisors, their product knowledge and customer service skills essential for building relationships and driving sales. Marketing departments, once obsessed with algorithms, click-through rates, and social media engagement, would be forced to rediscover the power of traditional advertising. Billboards, radio jingles, and print ads would experience a resurgence, their messages carefully crafted to capture the attention of a captive audience. The absence of the internet would force businesses to reevaluate their operations, to streamline their processes, and to focus on building strong relationships with their customers and suppliers. The digital age, for all its advantages, had created a culture of instant gratification and disposability. In its absence, businesses would need to rediscover the value of quality, durability, and personalized service. A world reborn, the resurgence of community and connection. As months turn into years, the initial chaos of a disconnected world would begin to subside, replaced by a new rhythm of life, one less reliant on the digital realm and more attuned to the tangible connections of the physical world. The absence of the internet, while initially disruptive, could foster a resurgence of community and local engagement, a return to the values of interdependence that had been eroded by the digital age's emphasis on individualism and virtual connection. Neighborhoods, once fragmented by the isolating nature of online interactions, would transform into vibrant hubs of social activity. Front porches, once deserted as families retreated into the digital glow of their screens, would once again become gathering places, where neighbors would exchange news, share resources, and rediscover the simple pleasure of face-to-face conversation. The absence of online distractions would create space for a renewed appreciation for the natural world. Parks and green spaces, once sparsely populated as people opted for the virtual realities offered by their devices, would once again become havens for recreation and relaxation. The digital detox, forced upon humanity by the internet's disappearance, would have the unintended consequence of fostering a deeper connection to the natural world. The constant pressure to document and share every aspect of one's life online would dissipate, replaced by a focus on living in the moment, on savoring experiences without the need for digital validation. The art of conversation, of truly listening and engaging with others, would experience a renaissance, as people rediscovered the depth and richness of human interaction, unmediated by screens. A world without the internet, while initially daunting, could ultimately lead to a more mindful, present, and interconnected society. The absence of the internet would not be without its downsides. While the digital age brought with it a host of challenges, it also ushered in an era of unprecedented access to information, empowering individuals and holding institutions accountable. The internet's disappearance would create an information vacuum, one that could be easily exploited by those seeking to control the narrative and consolidate power. Governments, no longer subject to the scrutiny of a globally interconnected public, could operate with greater opacity, their actions less visible to the watchful eyes of citizen journalists and online activists. Censorship, once a complex and often contested endeavor in the digital age, would become a simpler proposition, with control over traditional media outlets equating to control over the flow of information. Propaganda and misinformation, once easily debunked and challenged in the online sphere, would proliferate in an offline world, their spread facilitated by the lack of readily accessible fact-checking mechanisms. The echo chambers that had begun to form online could solidify into impenetrable silos of belief, as people, starved for information, clung to any narrative that confirmed their existing biases. The absence of the internet, while potentially fostering a resurgence of community at the local level, could also lead to greater fragmentation and mistrust at the global level. With limited channels for communication and cross-cultural exchange, misunderstandings could fester, and conflicts could escalate more easily, fueled by a lack of shared understanding and empathy. The internet, for all its flaws, had served as a bridge connecting people across geographical and cultural divides. Its absence could usher in an era of isolationism, suspicion, and mistrust. The most pessimistic scenarios predict a world plunged into a new dark age, a regression to a time before the internet's interconnectedness. Without the free flow of information and ideas, scientific progress could stagnate. Medical advancements, reliant on global collaboration and data sharing, might slow to a crawl. The very pace of innovation, fueled by the internet's ability to connect minds and accelerate the dissemination of knowledge, could grind to a halt. The global economy, already reeling from the initial shock of the internet's disappearance, could struggle to recover. Without the digital infrastructure that facilitates international trade and commerce, a return to localized economies might become inevitable. While this could foster self-sufficiency and reduce reliance on global supply chains, it could also lead to greater inequality and hardship, particularly for those in regions lacking essential resources. The loss of the internet could also have profound social and psychological consequences. The digital age, for all its downsides, has connected people across geographical and cultural divides, fostering empathy and understanding. Its absence could lead to greater isolation, loneliness, and social fragmentation. The mental health implications of losing access to online support networks and communities could be significant, particularly for vulnerable populations. A world without the internet could become a world defined by its limitations, its horizons narrowed by the absence of the digital realm's boundless possibilities. The human spirit of exploration and innovation, however, is not easily extinguished. Even in the face of such adversity, humanity would find a way to adapt, to connect, and to progress. The question is, at what cost? Yet even in the bleakest of scenarios, a glimmer of hope emerges. Humanity, after all, is defined by its resilience, its ability to adapt and innovate in the face of adversity. The disappearance of the internet, while initially catastrophic, could also serve as a catalyst for the creation of something new, something better. The very act of rebuilding, of reimagining a world without the internet, could unleash a wave of creativity and ingenuity, leading to the emergence of a new digital age. Already whispers of alternative networks, decentralized and resilient, circulate among those who once navigated the dark corners of the internet. These digital pioneers, driven by a belief in the power of interconnectedness and a deep distrust of centralized control, could hold the key to rebuilding a more equitable and accessible digital realm. Imagine a network built not on profit or surveillance, but on the principles of open access, privacy, and user empowerment. This new internet, forged in the crucible of loss, could learn from the mistakes of its predecessor. Privacy could be enshrined as a fundamental right, data security prioritized, and misinformation actively combated. The digital divide could be bridged, connecting not just individuals but entire communities to a wealth of knowledge and opportunity. The disappearance of the internet, while initially a cataclysmic event, could ultimately serve as a catalyst for positive change. It could force humanity to confront its dependence on technology, to reevaluate its priorities, and to rebuild a digital world that reflects its values of community, sustainability, and shared prosperity. The internet, like the mythical phoenix, could rise from the ashes, transformed and renewed, ready to usher in a new era of human connection and progress. The hypothetical disappearance of the internet presents a stark and unsettling scenario, a digital apocalypse forcing humanity to confront its deep-seated reliance on the invisible threads of the digital age. The immediate aftermath would be chaotic, a period of profound adjustment as the world grappled with the loss of its digital crutches. Yet, amidst the turmoil, a glimmer of hope emerges, a chance to reevaluate our relationship with technology and chart a new course for the future. Would we succumb to the challenges, regressing into a fractured world of isolation and uncertainty? Or would we seize the opportunity to rebuild, to forge a new path that prioritizes community, sustainability, and the enduring power of human connection? The answer ultimately lies within each of us. The internet, for all its flaws, has amplified our capacity for both good and ill. Its absence would be a stark reminder of its pervasive influence, a digital mirror reflecting back both the best and worst of humanity. So, as you reach for your smartphone, that ubiquitous symbol of our hyperconnected age, take a moment to consider its absence. Imagine a world without the constant barrage of notifications, the endless scroll of social media, the digital noise that often drowns out the whispers of the real world. Could you survive? Could you thrive in a world unplugged? Could you rediscover the lost art of conversation, the simple joy of a face-to-face interaction, the quiet contemplation of a world untethered from the digital realm? The internet's legacy, in its hypothetical absence, becomes a fork in the road, a moment of profound choice for humanity. We can choose to mourn the loss of our digital conveniences, to cling to the familiar comforts of a world mediated by screens, or we can choose to embrace the challenge to forge a new path that prioritizes the things that truly matter: community, connection, and the enduring power of the human spirit. The choice is ours, and the time to choose is now, before the digital curtain falls, and we are left to face the consequences of our choices in a world forever altered. Don't forget to subscribe to Ace Ed for more intriguing what-if scenarios.